Good morning, dobro jutro. On the two events we organized in the construction cluster of Slovenia. I will continue now in Slovenian to be faster, as our colleagues from Europe know about the program. Spoštovani predavatelji, spoštovane udeleženke in udeleženci, ne glede na odločitve državnikov na COP27.
Molim?
Kakva ti je zadova muzika?
Jazz.
Imam jazz.
Ne glede na odločitve državnikov v Glasgowu, mislim, da bo gradbeništvo, graditev, stavbe vedno med ključnimi področji za blažitev podnebnih sprememb, energetska učinkovitost, skoraj nič energijska gradnja, nič ogljična gradnja. Vse to mislim, da bo v špici prioritet vseh programov. Vprašanje je samo, koliko intenzivno, kako bomo to pospešili, in danes bo o tem govora. Slovenski gradbeni grozd je nacionalni partner kampanje Renovate Europe, ki se že 10 let v bistvu trudi na tem področju, in o tem bo govor tudi danes. Smo pa tudi partnerji v strateškem partnerstvu grozdov z odlično za skoraj nič energijsko gradnjo, kar je tudi ena od aktivnosti, ki spodbujamo aktivnosti na tem področju. Ker se je pač vsebina teh dveh dogodkov poklopila, oziroma teh vsebin, smo organizirali en dogodek, tako da povezujemo REDAY 21 Slovenija, nacionalni dogodek kampanje Renovate Europe, in drugo nacionalno delavnico v okviru projekta Smart4NZEB. Gospa Dogodek se je vključila, tako da mislim, da lahko nadaljujemo tako, kot je bilo zamišljeno. In sicer predstavil bom program, za začetek pa nekaj osnovnih napotkov, ki mislim, da so zdaj čisto jasni že vsem. Prosim, izključite mikrofone, da ne bo kakšnih šumov. Včasih se te kar sami vključijo, če ste preveč aktivni, in če je taka nastavitev uporabljena, tako da prosim, se držite tega. Vprašanja so v chatu, kot vedno, in tudi lahko se vključite kasneje v debato, v razpravo. Upam, da bo čas tudi za to. In vabim vas, da delite informacije o tem dogodku po socialnih omrežjih, uporabite enega od ključnikov, ki so tu navedeni, tako da bo informacija o tem šla naprej. Hkrati pa še enkrat ponovim, da bomo ves dogodek posneli in bo pač posnetek na voljo tudi kasneje za pogled tistim, ki se današnjega dogodka niso udeležili. Vemo, da je takih aktivnosti danes zelo veliko in včasih se pač ni možno udeležiti prav posebnega oziroma zanimivega dogodka. Program je naslednji, v dveh delih bo. Prvi bo v angleščini, in sicer bo, kot rečeno, predstavitev mednarodnih aktivnosti, mednarodnih priložnosti v okviru partnerstva grozdov, kar bo predstavil gospod Petran, koordinator projekta oziroma partnerstva grozdov za odlično, za skoraj nič energijsko gradnjo, kar sicer nekako sodi v drugi del, ampak glede na to, da imajo tudi predavatelji druge obveznosti, pač nekako smo ga vključili ta prvi del, plus bo v angleščini. Potem bomo imeli gospoda Andreja Joycea, ki bo predstavil 10. obletnico v bistvu zelo pomembne kampanje Renovate Europe, v zvezi katero se niti ne zavedamo, kako so v teh 10 letih vplivali na razne dogodke, aktivnosti, odločitve v Evropskem parlamentu in Evropski komisiji glede energetske učinkovitosti in obnove objektov. Jedro REDAY dogodka je predstavitev študije primerjave nacionalnih načrtov za okrevanje in odpornost, kar bo predstavila gospa Vilislava Ivanova. iz tega izvajalske organizacije, ki to študijo izvedla. V drugem delu pa bomo imeli, se pa pričujem, čisto na začetku bomo pa k besedi povabili gospod Neno Dokuzov iz Ministrstva za gospodarstvo, iz službe vlade za razvoj in evropsko kohezijsko politiko in jo bomo kar vprašali, kako je za implementacijo našega načrta. Tako da je to ta sprememba v programu. V nadaljevanju po krajšem odmoru bo pa naša kolegica Marjana Šenc predstavila live projekt Care for Climate, kjer se pripravlja veliko stvari, ki so povezane z gradnjo, z trajnostno gradnjo, z ocenjevanjem, vrednotenjem prenove v smeri trajnostne prenove in na koncu še v povezavi z digitalizacijo, ki je pomemben del teh aktivnosti, gospod Gorazd Rajh iz Pilon AEC. Toliko o programu, zdaj bi pa kar povabil gospod Neno Dokuzov, upam, da bo to teklo, glede na to, da naj bi bila v Barceloni. Če lahko se vključi.
Ne, v Lizboni.
Kako? V Lizboni, no, pardon.
V Lizboni pravim, kar je še dlje.
No, dobro.
Ja. Jaz upam, da bo tale internet deloval.
No, zaenkrat deluje. In vas kar vabim k besedi. Zdaj, če lahko v angleščini bi bili tudi veseli, zato da bodo te tudi angleški slušatelji, ki jih je kar nekaj, zadevo lahko poslušali. Pa mogoče se pol tudi kar predstavite angleščini, tako da bodo vedeli, kdo ste in kakšna je bila vloga pri pripravi in upajmo, da tudi pri izvedbi programa.
Zmenjeno slišala, ne?
Ja, izvolite.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Nena Dokuzov. I'm from the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology. I was very much involved in the preparation of
I think the connection is very bad. Ms. Dokuzov, we hardly hear you.
The national recovery and resilience confirmation in the summer of 2021. I have to say, besides that, the reforms and investments that we defined in the recovery and resilience plan, we needed to follow very strongly that do no significant harm principle.
I hope this will work. Lisbon is far away, but that's not the problem. The problem is connection on the spot.
Target and that milestones and targets we need to fulfill now within 2030. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, better.
Okay, then I'm now on the phone. Yeah, I'm sorry for this connection, but I'm really in 3G space, so this is the reality today. But in any case, I would like to present briefly what we did on the field of the energy efficiency in the economic sector. Because we went very widely and we are touching the subjects that you are having also in your agenda today very much. And I hope that we can cooperate here also to achieve that our national objectives, milestones and targets, but also the European milestones and targets, and the do no significant harm principle. So maybe if I go one by one, we divided that energy efficiency in the economy into 3 reforms. First reform was to create a kind of governance model, a marketplace for the trading of the renewable energy from in the digital platform. So we defined the steps how we can deal with the market from the point of view of the market supply, and the point of view of demand. So we started to think how to redefine that marketplace to get the market more efficient and better for every citizens. The platform that should be used in the way that the transmission of the energy surplus from one producer can be transmitted immediately and traced by the platform, by the technology within a very short time of the latency, so that we can get the full potential of the offer of the electricity, of the energy supply on the market when it is created, when it is produced. The second thing is that we're planning to have a kind of technical solution for ETS coupons, so for traceability of the energy consumption within economic or businesses, and then how the businesses behave when we go through the process of putting energy, that ETS coupons on the market. So this reform will also have an action plan, and I will warmly invite you to participate within that action plan. The third reform part was actually to have a technological solution for BIM, for the traceability of materials, for the traceability of the materials for the construction, and if you will be willing to participate, I will be very much welcoming you here in the process of building of that BIM, but on the other foundations. We need some kind of technological solution for traceability of construction materials. And therefore, we also foreseen that we are going to develop a kind of passport for materials. Passports for materials, because in construction sector we have a huge challenge, because the construction sector is a huge contributor to the national GDP on one hand, and it is also a quite strong polluter on the other hand, and so we decided to make a reform here. And the reform will address very much that BIM modeling, that traceability of materials, that energy efficiency of materials that we want to address, and the alternative use or the use of alternative materials that we have here also in Slovenia within surpluses. We also foreseen one very innovative model. This is a kind of sandbox. And this kind of sandbox will be testing laboratory for regulatory solutions for more faster integration of innovative technological solutions into the regulatory system. So this is the solution within which we will be through the testing of innovative technological solutions and in cooperation with the regulators. We will find out if we need to change the existing regulatory framework or to change the existing regulation, or we need to change the technological solution in a way to fit to existing regulation in the field of energy efficiency. So first step will be the code of conduct or some rules of procedure, and here I will invite you to participate within these rules of procedure to set how the new ideas, how the innovative projects technologically baked also will be tested, can enter into that sandbox, how will be tested through the testing period, and in the end, what will be the solution within that regulatory sandbox. Either we will talk with the regulators to change the regulation, and we will get the feedback if the technological solution is fits for the existing regulation that is being for the technological solution that is being developed by this certain company. It is very much important that we address the new technologies, so the climate neutral hydrogen, biomass and biotechnologies, then use of oxygen, the storage of oxygen, the storage of energy as such. So here I will invite you in the next month to participate, to cooperate with us, and to find that solutions from the energy efficiency in the economic sector, also within circular economy, within sustainable mobility, and we will very much cooperate here also with that integrated strategic project of decarbonization of Slovenia in the transit into circular economy. So maybe I would end here, and just to mention the timeline that we have here within energy efficiency in the economy. We have here for all the three reforms, we need to form a kind of action plans. Action plans will be then confirmed by the government, and it should be until the end of this year or until the second quarter of the next year. This is the first thing, and the second thing is that we are going to select, for example, within that test laboratory, 5 to 7 innovative technological solutions, which will definitely contribute to efficient upgrading of the regulatory framework. For example, in the field of flexibility market, transfer of the European regulatory framework to the national level, and after the successful testing period closure,
then the solutions will be put into consortiums within that pillars of the energy efficiency, and we will also have the complementary use of EU funding for the period 2021 to 2027. Please stop me if I'm too long, but I just want to mention that we have a timetable for the call for that 3 pilot areas, which will be in the maximum financing within the €1 million. We need to publish that action plan and invite the companies to contribute, to participate within these 3 pilot projects. Also, until the end of this year, we need to establish that testing laboratory or sandbox, and we need to publish the invitation for innovative technological solutions. Then, until Q2 2022, we need to provide architectural solutions for pilot platforms, so digital solutions, and Q4 for the last quarter for the testing period for at least 4 innovative technological solutions will be the end of 2022. So this is why I'm very glad that you invited me, because we will have a lot of work to do also together, and I hope that you will be able to attract the foreign partners, the partners that you are collaborating within the project, so that we can accumulate the knowledge within your projects, which is generated within your projects, and the knowledge that we need within that testing laboratory to bring out the innovative technological solutions for energy efficiency and for circular economy and circular the construction sector that we are addressing very much in the National Recovery and Resilience Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzo. Thank you very much. I think this is very valuable information, because we have here this event also our partners from other European countries working in energy efficiency and circular economy, and we are working in this field too. So we will have many common playgrounds to work on. And here, I think it's clearly also presented what I know, that I will comment a little bit is that implementation of the National Disaster Recovery Plan will be more or less managed by ministries. And
yes,
as I could understand, this is the work of Ministry of Economy. And
yes,
the operative part of renovation, this is Ministry of Infrastructure. And we could not get anybody to present that part because they are all, you know, on events, busy on traveling around. So that's our problem. But for me, it's important then actually also the new technologies will be supported and there is framework and reforms in this field because we also need to implement them in the renovation process. So thank you very much for your intervention. We must go on with the program because we have much to say. And please, let's keep in touch, and hopefully there will be good outcomes also within the implementation of recovery plan.
Yes, thank you for the invitation, and I will be happy if you will cooperate with us in the future steps of that energy efficiency pillar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and safe trip.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So that was the presentation. As I already said, and I knew that this implementation of the National Disaster and Recovery Plan will be managed basically by the ministries. And this was the perspective from the Ministry of Economy. which is important. Hopefully, we will get people from Ministry of Infrastructure, which are responsible for renovation part, to present the program, the ambitions in some of the next events. So now I would like to continue with the program, and I'm inviting Mr. Jorge Petran to take the floor and present how they work in this field in Romania. Just a second, I must stop sharing. Jorge, the floor is yours.
Yes, do you see the floor?
Yes, not the floor, the screen.
The presentation, okay. Okay, thank you very much, Vladimir, and thank you for the invitation. I will try to present you some initiatives in which we are involved, and also the Smart4NZEB action. Maybe a bit from the perspective of Romania, but it's not only for Romania what I will try to present. First of all, NZEB, which stands for Nearly Zero Energy Buildings, it's a 10 years old concept. It was defined more than 10 years ago by the recast EPBD, the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, and it was transposed in all member states. From transposition to implementation, this is a real story. And I think that there are some countries, among which is Romania also, in which the implementation is not so advanced. And this is because of the market readiness. And I will speak more about the market readiness in all the presentation, because we consider this is important. And also the Smart4NZEB action, which is an action among the European Strategic Cluster Partnership for Excellence, aims to facilitate cooperation on the implementation of this NZEB concept, and also for the use of the concept to deep renovation. Nowadays, the NZEB standard is the mandatory one for all new buildings in all member states, and it's used as a level towards those levels, also in the deep energy renovation tackling. And this is in the context of what we have promised for 2050, the famous decarbonization of the European Union economy. That includes the most contributor to the emissions of house gas gases, okay, CO2. And others, which is the building stock. And it's a very simple strategy that we have to define, because on average, more or less 75% of the buildings we have now, they will be in operation in 2050. So some of the buildings existing now will be demolished. Some of them will be improved in energy performance or in global performance. And new buildings will be at the NZEB standard. So it's a simple strategy. We should implement the NZEB standard in our markets, in our construction sector. And with the existing building stock, we should raise the standards or the indicators when we are doing energy renovation. So in terms of taxonomy, to go from moderate renovation to deep renovation. We have very important instruments that are the national long-term renovation strategies that are developed now for most of the countries. And we have to go to increase the market readiness. A very strong regulated market might perform as low as a low regulated market. So we do not have to speak only about the regulation of the market, but the reaction of the market and the readiness of the market to implement the new concepts in the usual practice. And of course, is the market perspective from the implementers, but also from the beneficiaries, from the building owners. And we have to have awareness in all these levels, in all these target groups. And last but not least, we are speaking about financing. If I remember 5 to 10 years ago, when we discussed with our stakeholders, the main problem would have been the lack of finances, which is not the case anymore. We have the financing mechanism at European level and also at national level. We have a lot of money that are targeted to this renovation and to these high energy performance buildings, but we lack the flexible financing instruments in order to put together different requirements, different performances to the same object, which is the building. And also we lack the financing mechanism in order to stimulate the private funding attraction. But first of all, what is the NZEB? It's a building, of course. B stands for building, that has a very high energy performance. And the very low or nearly zero energy required is covered to a very significant extent by energy from renewable energy sources, including energy from renewable sources produced on-site or nearby. And this was transposed more or less as it is in our legislation. And what is very strange is that the word including was kept. And this is really confusing because it's an open door to use also distant energy, which was not included in the original concept of the nearly zero energy building. But in fact, it's a very simple strategy. It's going from the current national requirements, which are revised from time to time, taking into account the methodology of cost optimization, to very low amount of energy required, and then to supply as much as possible this energy demand by renewable energy. What we need is indicators, and usual indicators that are transposed and provided in national regulation is the maximum primary energy, the minimum renewable share, and the maximum CO2 emissions. And all these indicators are calculated taking into account the cost effectiveness. So we are getting back to the market readiness. Is the image that we have on a market at the national level or regional level that reflects the capacity of the market to react and to implement this concept. Okay, we know where to go, but it's very important to know how to do it. And we propose in Romania a very simple definition. It is based on the 5 pillars of the passive house, because first step is to go as lower as possible with the energy demand. So we have to speak about high performance building insulation, high performance windows and doors, airtight building envelope, no thermal bridges as far as it is possible, mechanical ventilation with heat recovery, and of course, especially for new buildings, the optimization of the building shape and solar gains and solar radiation. So it's about configuration, it's about building physics, and it's about having the first step of going into the low energy demand. If we add the legal requirements from the social political perspective, we are speaking about significant renewable energy share. We are speaking about minimized CO2 emissions, of course, coming from the energy demand, which is very low or nearly zero, and the cost efficiency or the cost feasibility of the implementation. And this is a very simple map helping how to reach the NZEB performance if every single pillar of this concept is doubled by or is backed up with performance indicators, partial performance indicators as well. So we know where to go, but we still build like this. And in order to increase the market readiness, we have to assess what is not going on well. And of course, these are not all the barriers that we have. I would say they are the most relevant from the perspective of our market. And we are facing now maybe an economic crisis, because prices are rising in all the fields. Of course, it's an energy crisis, but also a material and resources crisis. So we have, compared to usual building, we have higher investment costs, and we are speaking about high payback periods. And this could be a barrier to embracing the deep renovation concept and performance, but I will speak about this later. We are speaking about mobilizing the correct level of investment. We have the big pot of money now, but we have to spend wisely and with the greater impact. It's about solving the puzzle, the technological puzzle of putting together the existing systems and technologies to achieve the REDAY performances. We are facing quantity and quality gap in terms of skills for the workforce and also for the white collars. And we are in the need of developing new business models in order to help the construction market and the construction sector to evolve and to adapt to these performances. And it's about all the neutral faces on the right that we have to transform in happy faces. And taking step by step all these barriers, first of all, if we are speaking about longer payback period, maybe it's not a good approach. Because if we speak about deep energy renovation for an existing buildings, we are not in the position to limit the payback period to 5, 8, or 10 years, because we will not achieve maybe with the situation that we have now in energy cost and in technology cost, the deep energy renovation performance. But it's about shifting the paradigm from analyzing the investment cost to analyze the cost over the operational period of the building, which can be standardized. If we are doing this, then we can see that the low investments or the high investments do not automatically bring the best possible or the optimum that we are not now calling when we are doing this analysis. For the building renovation, it's the same issue and it's the same approach. But we compare the situation, the new situation, with the measures applied, and every point in this graph is a measure or a package of measures with the building without renovation. And the difference of global cost in this case should be negative. And if we are standing in the cost optimal range, which is usual to go, the minimum energy performance are defined in this cost optimal range, or we can go still in the feasibility range to a higher energy performance. And this could be a way to define the NZEB range. The NZEB indicators for deep energy renovation. And then the technological puzzle is putting all together in the energy balance and putting all the technology that we have on the market. We don't have to wait for this because we have a mature concept and we have mature proof technologies on the market. Of course, we are developing new technologies in order to shape the future. In order to assess also market readiness is to assess if we have the tools to evaluate and to say that a building is NZEB or not, or if we have the performances that we declare. And yes, we have the energy performance certificate. And here we have two problems. First, the energy performance certificate has to include the NZEB indicators, because otherwise we cannot use it in order to prove that a building is NZEB or not. And secondly, it's about the market of EPC. That is different from country to country. But if we have a low quality and compliance framework regarding the EPC market, the EPC scheme, we cannot trust that it will function well in proving for a building if it's at NZEB standard or not. On the other side, we are speaking about the renovation of the building stock, and the EPC, it's not enough. The EPC, of course, we are obliged to include some recommendation in the EPC, but this is very shallow usually because the EPC has to be cheap. And if we are speaking about the cost effectiveness of the measure recommended, we are speaking about the energy audit. And in this concept, we are speaking about the building renovation passport, which should have, at least in the IB Road project, which is a close project, but it's continuing now with a new project starting in September, which is IB Road to EPC, should include two parts. First, a renovation map, which is a step-by-step building energy audit, and a logbook, which is the building digital registry, could be. And we have this in our legislation only as a definition, but in the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, we have a specific objective to develop this logbook, so-called logbook, which is the digital buildings registry. We are speaking about financial instruments, and we have the National Long-Term Renovation Strategy. We have the action plan that is discussed now in order to implement the long-term renovation strategy in Romania. But one of the actions are referring, which have to be implemented in the next, let's say, 4 to 5 years, is developing flexible financing mechanism. And in this context, we are continuing in the SMAFIN project, which is supporting smart financing implementation for energy efficiency in buildings in the Balkan region. We have Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, and Romania organizing in the 3 years of the action 3 roundtables, organizing discussions in the working group, having a platform and an e-forum, and I will kindly invite you to go to the SMAFIN website and register to this e-forum. You will find useful information and you can contribute to the debates on smart energy financing. And at the end, we will develop recommendations and policies for investment schemes in energy efficiency. Coming back to the barriers, one of the main barriers identified and is still critical, and not only in Romania, and that is a reason why the European Commission launched the Build Up Skills continuation under the LIFE project, which is a call open until the mid of January, to reshape and to update the roadmaps for build workforce qualification for energy efficiency and renewable energy. And based on the roadmap that we defined and we published 9 or 10 years ago, we defined the building knowledge hubs. This is based on the experience of the Passive House Institute and Passive House Academy in Ireland, and based on the terms of reference that are published on the Train2NZEB website and can be used to develop further. We defined a concept which is providing training and consultancy for nearly zero energy building, and this is part of the market readiness. And you have some numbers on the right. These are the people trained during the 3.5 years project that we implemented. And these are the facilities that we built, that we developed, and the trainings, because we are speaking about practical trainings and we are speaking about people. And one of the next steps in this adventure was to put the BKH, the Building Knowledge Hubs, on wheels. And we came up with another initiative to stimulate the demand for sustainable energy skills in the construction sector, which is the NZEB Roadshow. And we are targeting 11 groups. We have 11 target groups for communication and for personal engagement in order to have within the NZEB weeks, which are standalone events full of demonstrations, of workshops, training activities, practical trainings, awareness, and even games for children. And we have a set of workshops defined for kids, and also a cartoon with the superhero NZEB, which is a fine dog, explaining to children what is the NZEB and how can we benefit of this concept if we have it in our house. The next step, and this is one of the recent projects that we have started in September, it's the NZEB REDAY. And we start from the idea of having a tag, a label, to objects or to people that are ready or fit for NZEB. And this was because analyzing the participating country, Romania, Portugal, Bulgaria, Poland, and Croatia, we analyzed the three main topics that we focus on in this project: the awareness, the skills, and the tools for implementation. And we come up with a very, I would say, shallow but robust analysis of having a very low level amongst our countries. And the idea is to develop on these three directions in order to go to NZEB ready level within the market. And we started from three simple questions in this awareness, skills, and tools. First of all, why NZEB? Why we are speaking about awareness about the benefits of this concept, because it's not a mandatory concept only or standard. It's a standard coming with many benefits. Secondly, who can provide NZEB? And we are targeting the skilled professionals in order to upskill the existing qualifications, but also to come up with new certification scheme. For example, if we are speaking about the blower door, the airtightness of the building envelope, we do not have the blower door testers. So we have to develop schemes for that. If we are speaking about a continuous layer of insulation and no thermal bridges, we have to have people prepared to evaluate and to analyze the details, the construction details in terms of thermal bridges. We are speaking about the quality, but we have to have people skilled in making the infrared inspection, for example, and so on. And last but not least, how to reach NZEB. And we are speaking about some instruments that we should define in order to help the NZEB implementations. And all around, all this approach ambitiously targeting the development of a labeling scheme of NZEB readiness. And yeah, this is our approach based on what we defined as a starting point. And the scope is to support the increase of the market readiness for an effective NZEB implementation and to stimulate the demand for energy-related skills. And we will start from bridging the NZEB initiatives, existing ones, analyzing the market needs, and then develop the awareness campaign, develop and implementing the training courses and certification or labeling schemes, and develop tools for homeowners, for public procurement, for public authorities, and for financial institutions in order to facilitate the implementation of this concept. This was the reason that we used when we formed the cluster like almost 6 years ago. This is the ProNZEB cluster, and the idea is that we have to go from the grassroots, from the grass level, in order to prepare the market. We have to analyze the needs from the market perspective, of course, targeting one of the pillars of the cluster, which is the public administration, but using the market and the research, development and innovation sector to stand at the same table and to discuss the barriers, to find solutions, to develop projects and to implement them. And this is a round circle that we started with the Train2NZEB and Fit2NZEB project by building knowledge hub, by offering practical and theoretical training for the target groups, to offer consultancy for the market, together with the research and the market, to promote, to maybe not lobbying, but helping in improving the legal framework and the regulation, to strengthen the national and international partnerships towards the NZEB implementation, and this is the Smart4NZEB project, for example, and to solve the NZEB puzzle. And this circle is closing every time with improving the training and consultancy that we are offering and going round and round until we have the high anxiety now. So the Smart4NZEB project, it's an initiative with the aim of collaborating different clusters from different markets, from different countries. We have 5 clusters from 4 countries. We have Romania, Slovenia, Poland, and Serbia. We have construction clusters, we have green energy clusters, and we have NZEB cluster that is putting together both. We are targeting the SMEs, we are tackling synergies, because NZEB, it's about energy in buildings. So we have the energy sector, we have the building and the construction sector. We are speaking about skills, so we are tackling the educational sector and the work sector, the workforce. And we are targeting also renewable energy and technology. And it's about helping our market, especially the SMEs, to increase the competitiveness of the market, to have the advantage and to go from, in the learning curve, from early adopters to the critical mass. And one of the main key actions of the initiative is the cluster exchange program. We are targeting cluster exchange in all our countries. We couldn't do in the physical form those visits because of the pandemic, and we plan to go for the next year, after hopefully the pandemic will be gone, to organize these exchanges. Exchange of 1 week, 5 days, between the different markets. We will have host organizations and visiting organizations, the representative of cluster organizations, but not only, also business networking, technological centers, research institutes, innovation hubs, incubators, accelerators, targeting mainly SMEs. We'll have the opportunity to learn from actors in another cluster, to explore growth opportunities in new markets, to take up new technologies, digitalization, green low carbon solutions, and to invest in strategic international collaboration. So find the information on our websites, on the clustercollaboration.eu, on the ESCP for X partnerships. Well, the objectives of the actions are varied. I already mentioned this. The important thing is our targets, and we are now going to almost achieve all the targets in engagement of the market, the SMEs especially, the stakeholders, to reach with our information. We organize training and coaching programs, and we are still organizing. The program, the project is defined for 2 years, but it will be extended with 1 year only for the cluster exchange program. We organizing workshops. These workshops is one of them. And we are targeting many other numbers and activities. So basically, this is an opportunity. And having the collaboration within clusters and with other clusters in other countries, it's an amazing experience in order to exchange experience, to exchange information, and to work together in this European market. And this is one of the keys of getting the market ready for the new policies, for the new performances established by, I don't know, NZEB standard or deep energy renovation standard, and we cannot do it together. Last but not least, one of my friends said once that the construction sector is an organic sector, and the construction process is an organic process because there are many people involved. And we are speaking about smart buildings, smart communities, and smart cities, and whatever smart planets in the near future. But we should focus on the smart people because they are implementing the smart policies for our buildings and community. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think there are so many examples of what needs to be done, what can be done, what is done in Romania. Where the synergy with actually the program activities and action which were described previously by Ms. Dogodek can be looked after, or worked on. And I hope the rest of the attendees get now this final message, and I like it very much. Smart people in construction, firstly, which is really important, and hopefully we will go on with this in this direction. So I would like now to give the floor to Adrian Joyce from the Renovate Europe, and let's have a discussion question after all those 4 presentations. Adrian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. And it's a real pleasure to be addressing you this morning and your colleagues in Slovenia and from across several other countries. And I wanted to start by thanking your cluster for being such a good partner of the Renovate Europe campaign and for inviting me to address you once again on your National Renovate Europe Day. What I wanted to start was to say Horia has really set a high bar in terms of the quality of the content of his presentation, and that the presentation was, of course, quite technical. Here in Brussels, we work on policy issues, and I think my presentation will be quite contrasting to Horia's, but I hope nonetheless interesting. I wanted to start by recalling that we are in the weeks of the COP meeting that's taking place in Scotland these days.
Adrian, just a short.
Yes.
There is some issue with your audio sound.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe there are two microphones on. I don't know.
I do not have two microphones on, but I will try my headphones and see if that's better. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, it's better. Thank you.
Is it okay now, or will I try my headphones?
No, now it's okay.
Okay.
I don't know what was the cause of that.
Okay. Thank you, Vladimir. And interrupt again if the sound goes bad. It does sometimes happen with the connection. Or maybe other people have their microphones open. So I was just starting with the global context and recalling that these weeks are the weeks for the COP event in Scotland. And to underline the urgency of acting for the climate emergency that the globe has, and we as occupants of the biosphere have created for ourselves. As Antonio Guterres has said, we're on a path to collective suicide if we don't act moving forward. So I always like to recall that context, which is real and with us today. The second thing I like to recall is what is the characteristic of the construction sector in the EU? Well, you will all know that the activities in the construction sector go beyond just works to new buildings and existing buildings, but on to infrastructure and the provision of services like water, like ports, etc., motorways. And the economic characteristics are super important. That was underlined by your ministry official earlier. The construction activity in Europe generates about 9% of GDP. It directly employs around 16 million workers, making it the biggest industrial employer. But those workers are working in around 3 million enterprises, 97 of which are micro enterprises, meaning 10 employees or less, making it very complex to move the sector in any direction because so many actors need to be motivated. The annual turnover, even in bad times, is around 1,500 billion euro per year. And as was said earlier, it's considered by many countries to be the lifeblood of their economy, creating 50% of fixed capital assets each year. But within the building sector, let's recall the numbers that I hope you all are familiar with, that during the operational life of buildings are consuming 40% of our primary energy that's produced, and therefore emitting 36% of energy-related CO2, because we remain highly dependent on fossil fuel sources of energy. But if you go beyond the operational life, and I can hear from your ministry person that this is important in Slovenia, and look at the whole lifetime of your buildings, you will find that they consume around 50% of primary energy, emit around 50% of energy-related CO2, and use about 50% of all resources taken from the planet. So my message really here is, if these characteristics and this intense use of resources is not addressed, then we simply cannot achieve long-term climate neutral goals by 2050. And we must really focus on how to go from where we are today to where we must be in that time frame. At EU level, the main legislation that regulates the energy performance of buildings is a directive that was first adopted in 2002, so nearly 20 years ago. And the main innovation in that particular directive at that time was the introduction of the energy performance certificate, much discussed earlier by Horia. And its intention at the time was to influence purchasing decisions for buildings. And it is a sad reflection that even now, 20 years later, less than 30% of the building stock across Europe as a whole is covered with an energy performance certificate. But to come to my story, which is the story ultimately of the Renovate Europe campaign, the Buildings Directive was recast in 2010. And there the main innovation, I would say, was the introduction of nearly zero energy buildings. Again, beautifully covered by Horia. But the nearly zero energy buildings at the moment only are a requirement for new buildings. And in fact, all new buildings being delivered today in the European Union should comply with national nearly zero energy building standards. And they don't. And I know there's a study on this coming soon from the Buildings Performance Institute Europe that would be interesting. So in 2010, we realized in Eurowaste that the Buildings Directive was not yet addressing the biggest energy using factors, which are operational use of existing buildings. And it was for that reason that in 2011, we established the Renovate Europe campaign, which I will present in a moment. And that campaign has been active with a wide range of stakeholders. In fact, today we have 49 partners supporting the campaign, 18 of whom are at national level. And that campaign really tried to put into the spotlight the role that existing buildings are playing in polluting the atmosphere and in trapping people in uncomfortable and often unhealthy buildings because they are so energy wasteful. Then in 2018, there was a further revision of the Buildings Directive, and happily, renovation came center stage, with the main innovation being the requirement for member states to produce long-term renovation strategies to make the entire building stock highly energy efficient and decarbonized by 2050. And I would say that that legislation aims principally at the operational phase of buildings. So this is the kind of context in which Renovate Europe over the last 10 years has evolved. And it's worth saying that right at this moment, we're expecting another revision of the Buildings Directive to come at the end of the year or very early next year. So looking back at the campaign, who are we? Well, we are a political communications campaign, as I said, raising awareness about the role that buildings must play moving forward. Here you see the 49 partners that support us, from industries, digital companies, through city networks, think tanks, trade unions, financial institutions, to our national partners, which also reflect a very high level of different types of stakeholders. We also have a high number of, the objectives of the campaign have not changed over time. They have been to reduce the energy demand of the overall building stock in the EU by 80% by 2050. And now we would say very much what Horia said, that the remaining demand must be met entirely by decarbonized renewable sources. It implies a number of things, that the rate of energy renovation, I would say of deep energy renovation, must reach 3% per year and remain at that for the next 28 years. And here, bottom left, you see a study that was carried out for the European Commission, demonstrating that energy renovation, deep energy renovation, is running at a rate of only 0.2% per year as an average across Europe. So you can imagine how huge the challenge is to move forward. The massive, by far the most renovation activity is taking place at a cosmetic level, a replacement of a kitchen, or the painting of a facade, or other such cosmetic activities, and very few are addressing energy performance, therefore locking us in to the bad characteristics I spoke about earlier. The top graph comes from 2018, a study by the Buildings Performance Institute Europe, demonstrating that at that time, only 3% of issued energy performance certificates carried an A label, meaning 97% of buildings are inefficient. So the campaign has been successful in drawing political support, and at the present time we have 34 members of the European Parliament, 8 old members of the European Parliament, 3 city administrations, and 1 national member of Parliament as champions who speak up for renovation at every occasion. And as you know, we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. I've prepared a short video to share with you now, just to give you a flavor of what we have done over the years. And then I will come back to the PowerPoint and give you further details about where we go from here. So please sit back and enjoy the little video I'm about to share. And I'll come back to you in about 4 minutes. We're asking you today to support the Renovate Europe campaign, which this event officially launches.
Renovation was being ignored as one of the, it was clearly the most critical thing that we need to do for climate change, for the energy transition, then it is now. And I think we noted that whilst there was lots of work being done on new build and what needed to happen there, renovation was just not being taken seriously at neither the national level or the European level. And it was really important to make that the case for renovation and to make people understand why it was so important and such a good idea in terms of climate transition to get onto renovation and focus on it.
Series of posters and videos from MEPs across the political spectrum, which I think made a really important contribution to sort of normalising renovation as part of European decarbonisation policy.
Secure our future. Renovate Europe.
Guys have achieved a massive success story. The questions then for policy now are, how do we keep going?
For the next decade, we really have to keep the pressure up on renovation. I think compared to a decade ago, we now recognize that not only is there a huge opportunity here, but it's an opportunity that we just can't allow not to be taken.
It's up in the next decade to implement this at national level and to really speed up the renovation rates in the different member states.
We hope for the years to come the general line should be kept. Maybe only the methods and the approaches will vary in accordance with the changing environment. We are sure the involvement of new partners and people will provide a splash of new ideas and solutions.
I think in the next period we would really appreciate also to play at local level a more important role.
You have had your own great ideas in the last 10 years, but in view of the revision of the EPBD-EED and climate obligations resulting from these and other documents in the member states, we believe that it might be worth considering close and deep cooperation by EU and the national contributing partner.
Renovate Europe, I think, should focus on the implementation of different strategies.
I wish the team at Renovate Europe a good anniversary and an inspiration for the implementation phase that is coming for the 10 years ahead to get renovations really started. Thank you.
The citizens are already paying attention to renovation. This support may have the right size, and all we need now is to find balance between very many things. So that is going to need a lot of coordination.
What I would wish for the next upcoming years is even more active national partners.
We have to create new business models and new approaches, new products, new services based on digitalization and high-skilled professionals.
When we look at the next 10 years for Renovate Europe, I see that digitalization. We see that our buildings are becoming more and more modern, so it's needed that we can communicate with the consumption and what we need, and also what's the weather conditions.
Let me congratulate you to your anniversary, and let me wish you for the next decade that simply everyone acknowledges what we already know and advocate for. And that's it. That's my wish. So good luck, take care, and see you next time. Bye.
Mazāki apkuras rēķini, siltāki, patīkamāki mājokļi, tie ir tikai daži no ieguvumiem, ko sniedz ēku renovācija.
The next decade is crucial to deliver ambitious renovation of the building stock in the EU. The directive on energy efficiency and energy performance of buildings are under revisions, and there are new initiatives like the new European Bauhaus. And not to forget, we have to make the most of the recovery financing. There are plenty of opportunity to put building renovation at the center of the EU agenda.
So I hope you enjoyed listening and watching our video. And in fact, I have also on the slides a couple of those actions that I wanted to talk to a little bit more. So for example, the research on which we have based much of our communications was, when it first came out, groundbreaking. Particularly here on the left, we were the first to look at the multiple benefits of investing in energy efficient renovation. And we found at the time, 2012, that we can create local quality jobs, we can boost public finances, we can improve quality of life, we can stimulate economic activity and growth, and we can increase energy security, an issue that's come back to the agenda with the recent increases in energy prices. We were delighted that this work we did in Renovate Europe led the International Energy Agency to take on a similar project, which was published in 2014. More recently, in 2020, we looked at whether the findings from nearly 10 years earlier were still valid. And we looked at how many jobs can be created for each €1 million invested. And the average across Europe turned out to be 18 jobs. We also found that holistic energy efficient renovation of office buildings can increase productivity by about 12%, which could potentially give a benefit of €500 billion to the economy per year. There were other findings in that report, so well worth looking at. And I hope the PowerPoint will be distributed afterwards, because the links in the PowerPoint are live and you can go to the download sites for these studies. Our latest study is Renovate to Recover, carried out by E3G, where we've taken a deep look at the national recovery and resilience plans in 18 countries, but you'll hear all about that shortly when Vilaslava Ivanova from E3G presents that study. She was the main researcher undertaking the work. Other achievements, and I'll be quite quick here, relate to disseminating information in accessible formats, using videos of our champions, calling for a renovation fund, where in fact we had 125 companies and associations support our call. And by the way, Europe has still not created a dedicated fund for renovation. We've had very successful Renovate Europe Day events, and I wanted to just quickly mention two. The first in 2019, before the COVID crisis, where we had the good fortune to be in the European Parliament and to mount an exhibition demonstrating that deep energy renovation is already all around us, and all around us in many different segments. You can find these projects on our website. 3 are highlighted in my presentation today. One park in Bordeaux, where at a cost of just €415 per square meter, plus an increase in floor space for each apartment of 50%, 60% energy savings were achieved, creating these wonderful bright spaces and improving the quality of life of the residents. In Bratislava, 74% of savings were achieved through the implementation of an ethics system with a new approach to heating the building, particularly heat recovery, ventilation, and heat pumps instead of boilers. And a third quick example, the renovation of a creche or kindergarten in Croatia, demonstrating that 76% energy savings were achieved. In 2020, we had our highest level of political engagement in person at a Renovate Europe Day event. I would say helped by the fact that it was digital, because we had the EC Vice President Franz Timmermans, we had the Vice Minister Antonio Liziani, and the French member of the Assemblée Nationale, Marjorie Milfer, demonstrating, I think, the great political support we've been able to run over time. We also had 6 national events last year, also a record. But looking towards the future, and here, Vladimir, I'll just take 3 or 4 minutes. Coming back to the context of policies at EU level, where this was the picture only 6 months ago, where the 2020 targets of 20% greenhouse gas emission reductions, 20% renewable energy in the electricity sector, and 20% target for energy efficiency were in place. And the efficiency target has not been achieved. The renewables target has been achieved, and the greenhouse gas target has been achieved largely because of lack of economic activity. Then we set objectives for 2030, as you see here, 40%, 32%, and 32.5%. And then there was a big realization that this was not enough. So currently, the negotiations are underway to increase the renewable energy target to 45% by 2030 and negotiations underway to increase the energy efficiency target to 37%, because the at least 55% greenhouse gas target is already enshrined in EU law and adopted by all member states. To give you a feeling, and I'm not going to read this slide, we have 4 big groups of legislation that's being proposed that will affect renovation moving forward. Captured in the European Green Deal, captured in the Next Generation EU initiative, in the Fit for 55 package, and soon in the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. That's me on the right climbing the pile of legislation as I try to grapple with all of this new initiatives. But I think it's a demonstration of the success of the campaign, its partners, and many other organizations that renovation has finally received, at least at European level, the recognition it deserves for the role it can play in improving our lives and helping us mitigate the negative impacts of climate change. So for the Renovate Europe campaign, our priorities will maybe all already be obvious. We intend to work, of course, closely on the revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive and on the Energy Efficiency Directive, with key elements that we wish to see: a better definition of deep energy renovation, stronger financing component within both the Buildings Directive and the Efficiency Directive, and an extension of Article 5 to address the renovation of all public buildings. And this is already proposed, and we will defend it moving forward as it goes through negotiations. In our work on scaling up financing for energy renovation of buildings, we want to continue to identify successful renovation schemes at national level that can be replicated in other countries or at EU level. And some of that you will hear about right now when we present the analysis of the national resilience, recovery and resilience plans. And importantly, and you heard it in the video, we want to strengthen the link between the EU and national level in order to boost energy renovation rates. And that will go through greater cooperation between us and our national partners, between the national partners themselves at intra-national level. But we will create opportunities for dialogue with country-focused calls, which we've started, with increasing funding and technical assistance as an enabling framework, and by good implementation, not only of the national recovery and resilience plans, but of existing EU-level legislation. So, as I said, in doing that, the national partners, and here they are highlighted, will become more important than they've been to us so far. And I think that together we have an opportunity that we can't afford to miss in order to improve, as I said, quality of life and climate mitigation moving forward. So thank you all for your attention. I'm here to take some questions, I think maybe after Vilislava makes her presentation. So back to you, Vladimir, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Adrian. And I don't know in which name, but maybe in names of many organizations around Europe, I would like to thank you and the team and all other national partners which are working hard to bring to work on those piles of documents you presented, to make people in the politics and in economy and business aware of the importance of the construction and the renovation. Actually, there are really huge figures, and we can present these huge figures in many ways, and this is really important. So I think these things are really worth to be said. In regard to national partners, I really look forward to work as a Slovenian national partner, and hopefully we will be able to pull in also other organizations from Slovenia to take part. Some of them are today together with us and actually work together, because the implementation is highly done on the national level, as presented by Horia perfectly. And these activities are also being implemented in Slovenia. This will be presented later on by Mariana Šienec, partly. And I hope this will be a good work together in the future. And now I would like to invite Ms. Vilislava Ivanova to present the outcomes of the comparison of the national resilience and recovery plans in Europe. I think this is really important, especially for Slovenia. And Vilislava, the floor is yours. Just share the screen and go on.
I can't see if I'm sharing everything properly.
Just use the full screen and it will be okay. No, try again.
I try again.
Yeah.
Always struggle.
Don't worry. Run the presentation and it will be.
Vidislava, if you can't see it, I can share my screen with your presentation. You can just say next slide.
That's okay. Just give me one final chance to try. And then I think it's because I'm on two screens. And then I might come to you.
Yes. You must choose the right screen to share if you have many screens. Yeah, that's all.
Is that working now?
Oh, it gets back to the working level. Yes, try this.
Now?
Yeah.
Finally, I do apologize for that. Really sorry. And thanks for having me today to present the outcomes of the study. So I will quickly get you through the study we did on the national recovery and resilience plans. So I'll go through the study, the key findings and best practices we've identified, some of the main recommendations for the overall study. So that's the study based on the 18 countries. And then I will also go through a bit more detail on the Slovenian recovery plan. So as Adrian mentioned, we did the study is now public and available for download. So we have we've produced one summary study of key findings across all the member states we looked into, and also individual country profiles for each of the countries. We delivered this study in really close cooperation with national partners of the Renovate Europe campaign. I would like to thank Vladimir here for helping us extremely with understanding the Slovenian recovery plan and putting it in the context. So we wanted to work closely with national partners to capture the detailed understanding and this on-the-ground understanding of country conditions when it comes to recovery plans and the way they were created. So what we did and why we did the study of recovery plans, this has been mentioned already by Adrian, but renovation is at the intersections of the green economic and social priorities of the EU. So there is a specific flagship Renovate part of the recovery plans, which was targeting the increased renovation rate and fostering deep renovation. So according to the regulation around the recovery funding, 37% of the funds should go towards green initiatives, and 20% should be dedicated to digital. So within that context, renovation is really at the intersection at the intersection of those themes, as well as offering an opportunity to just kickstart the renovation wave strategy implementation on the ground with what is a quite significant investment, public investment. So the other context that all of you would be familiar with is that renovation rate at the moment is just at 1%. And as Adrian highlighted, deep renovation is very, very significant at the moment. And in order to reach the EU's targets, green targets, that needs to increase linearly to at least 3% until 2030, sorry. So at the moment, we're at a place where around 85 to 90 billion are invested annually in energy efficiency. But we know that in order to reach objectives, we need to get that, we need additional 275 billion per year to meet our targets. That is funding for energy efficiency and heat in buildings. So the overall logic and conclusion is that we cannot achieve what we need to achieve in terms of building renovation with public finance alone. And as Horia highlighted already, there is a need to create a strong enabling framework for delivery, which would cover things like skills and new standards and stronger regulation, information campaigns and so on, all of these activities that all of you are working on in detail. So what was within the scope of the study? We focused almost explicitly on the investment flows. So how much funding is allocated to building energy renovation in the recovery plans? Where is it invested? What depths of renovation are supported? Which building segments and so on? So very clearly what is being funded. We also developed a framework, which I'm going to talk to you in detail in a bit, which is around assessing how transformational the recovery plans are. This links back to the point of not only looking at what's being funded and how much money is being allocated, but also what is it allocated for, and is it creating those market conditions that were discussed earlier. So in that context, we looked at whether the funding is boosting renovation rate and depths, and whether it's addressing some of those barriers to uptake rather than purely funding additional investment in the renovations themselves. I want to stress that point now, and I might return to it later. The study is a starting point, and as Adrian highlighted, there is a significant amount of regulation legislation being discussed at the EU at the moment. In particular, the energy performance of building directives and energy efficiency directives are both under review. And our view is that you would need decisive impact, both regulatory and on the ground, to deliver what we need to deliver and maximize impact. So back to the assessment framework of the study. So the study is qualitative. As I mentioned, we focused on investment measures, although we do summarize what countries are doing in terms of regulatory changes. We developed a framework which was based around a preset number of assessment criteria, which we then applied to all countries. The idea behind this was to try and create some level of comparability between what different countries are investing in. So the criteria we developed are in 5 categories, which are on this slide. So target setting, financial landscape, integrating multiple benefits, supply chain, project support, and implementation framework. In terms of what we looked at for each of the criteria, for the target setting, we looked at the degree to which targets are clearly set within the recovery plans, be it in terms of number of buildings that are being renovated or in terms of volumes of emissions that are targeted. So we wanted to see how clear countries are in terms of what their funding is aiming to deliver. The second element we looked at there is the degree to which what is being funded through recovery plans is aligned with the long-term renovation strategies. And then finally, as mentioned, the depth of what we call the depth of ambition is the degree to which funding is targeted at medium or a deeper renovation. So it's just to note here that the recovery funding regulation was requiring sorry, I'll start again. Under the recovery funding regulation, savings of 30%, a primary energy reduction, which is medium depth renovation, were sufficient to count an investment as delivering on the green objectives. We've classified that as needing improvement, and because you would need deeper renovation to achieve the European Union's goals. So moving to the financial landscape, we looked again at 3 separate sub-elements there. So the degree to which investment needs are clearly defined, and it's clear what the NRRP is contributing to. Also the degree to which funding, NRP funding, is allocated alongside other public funds, or in a sense, how clear it is where the recovery funding is additional and where it's replicating. And then the final element we looked at is the degree to which it's clear how much private finance is targeted to. So by investing in the public funds, how much private finance is being is aimed to be attracted. In terms of the integrating multiple benefits, in this category, we looked at the degree to which renovation is targeting energy poverty, how much there is a link between energy efficiency improvements and building decarbonization, how much there is a focus on digitalization for the building sector to unlock some of those benefits that were discussed earlier, and the degree to which renovation is linked to wider social benefits. For instance, accessibility, air quality, and so on. On the fourth criteria, we looked at the supply chain and project support. That one probably a bit more straightforward. We looked at whether there is funding allocated for development of future skills, green skills, and whether there is any investment towards technical assistance, such as one-stop shops. And finally, under the implementation, we looked at the implementation plan. Are there clear milestones and intermediate milestones? Is it clear what the plans aim to deliver over time? And then the final thing we looked at is what we call institutional clarity, which is it clear who is responsible, which ministry and which structures around it would be supporting the implementation of the recovery plan funding. So to the point of what we found, first our quantitative findings across the 18 member states, we found that around 40 billion is allocated for investment in building energy renovation. So that percentage, that is around 8.59% of the total funding, total recovery funding in those countries. Most countries allocate between 11 to 14% of their recovery fund towards building energy renovation. But there are significant variations. So Slovenia here is at 85 million and Austria is 101 million euro, while in other countries like Spain and Italy, it's 8.9 and 7.8 and 8.6 billion. So that also results in per capita differences. So the map on the right-hand side shows the countries where there is a higher share of funding allocated to building energy renovation. In terms of which sectors are targeted, around 22 billion or 56% is allocated towards the residential sector. And then the public sector follows with around 14 billion or 34% of the total funding. In most cases, what we observe is that the renovations are expected to deliver at least medium depth, realizing 30% primary energy savings. In very few occasions, we saw a clear commitment to delivering higher level of energy savings. So as mentioned, variations between the member states. So the public sector renovation is dominant in 4 countries. So Slovenia, Croatia, France, and Belgium. In all the others, residential sector takes the lead. We can discuss that in the Q&A. I know in the case of Slovenia, public sector is also highlighted as the long-term renovation strategy priority. So in that case, it's well aligned, the funding from the NRP with what the long-term strategy requires. But we'll be interested in discussing that with you later. Back to the question of the qualitative assessment, how transformational are the plans? So we found that in majority of cases, there's need for improvement on among pretty much all of the criteria, but the plans are a good starting point. So we have 5 countries which we scored as strong, as demonstrating clear targets beyond medium depth. We have 2 countries scoring strong on combining public finance with private finance. And then we have the criteria around multiple benefits is the one where the criteria itself is quite broad. We have quite broad kind of differences between the countries. So in the vast majority of cases, energy poverty is acknowledged within the recovery plans. It's very rarely targeted with specific programs, with few exceptions like France. Heat decarbonization and the links between heat decarbonization and energy efficiency we find are underexplored. So there are very few references or direct references, at least in the plans. It might be in the details, but there are very limited references to the energy efficiency first principle or to integrated programs which combine decarbonizing the building stock with energy efficiency. Similarly, we found very limited investment in digital. So be it in the form of digitalization of building passports or creating databases or any kind of activities around that. Again, there are exceptions for everything I say. There are exceptions in member states which we've extracted as best practice. And then for the wider benefits, we found that in most cases, through renovation, at least in the public sector, at least one or two other things are prioritized, be it accessibility or adaptation. So in most cases, we see that buildings, the energy renovation aims to deliver also further benefits. Moving on to the right-hand side of the slide, on the technical assistance and skills is the one element perhaps where we saw the biggest need for improvement. So 9 out of the 18 countries did not allocate either one or the other. So technical assistance and skills remain heavily unaddressed through the recovery funding. And finally, on the implementation, we found that's probably, or the institutional responsibility, that's probably the one criteria where countries score the highest, but we can benefit from clear delivery targets and intermediate milestones. This is the summary of the assessment for all the countries. So as I said, there is strong basis for progress across the board. Most frequently, countries scored what in our framework counted as needs improvement. Slovenia there at the bottom, you can see also needing improvement along most of the criteria, but definitely a strong basis to build on. I mentioned already, we tried to look at best practices and examples across the member states, and I've selected just a few here for the sake of demonstrating, but there are a lot more detail and a lot more examples in the full report. So for the targets, as I said, we have a few examples where there is explicit commitment to go more than 30% or deliver more than 30% energy savings. That includes social housing in Belgium's Brussels region, where the target is at least 53% primary energy saving. Also in the public sector in Ireland, there is an explicit target of delivering at least 50% energy saving. In terms of financing, we, as an area, it's overall an area where there is significant room for improvement, but there are a few good examples. Germany, for instance, is a good example of combining own funding, so kind of Germany's federal government funding with the NRRP to create synergies between the two. And in Italy, there is some creative use of creative changes to the existing frameworks that will allow banks and energy service providers to participate in existing energy renovation schemes. In terms of the multiple priorities, Czech Republic is as an example of a very close integration of energy renovation with adaptation, improvements to the indoor environment in the case of schools, and the use of sustainable materials. Romania, which was mentioned already, with the digitalization building register and digital building renovation passports and logbooks, which I don't know the details of, but that was the example of using digital and integrating digitalization with the energy renovation process. So that's one good example there. And when it comes to multiple benefits, Spain is another good example where the energy renovation would be delivered in a way which targets the regeneration of regions and also addressing demographic challenges in specific regions in Spain, so taking more of a regional approach. Finally, around the technical skills and technical support, Croatia is a good example of the creation of additional one-stop shops, which are aiming to help citizens get support, both for energy efficiency and post-earthquake reconstruction. We flagged it as a good example because it combines multiple different reasons one might seek to improve their building, which would allow them to also improve the energy efficiency of the building. So I won't go into too much detail on the key recommendations, but based on the study and looking across the 18 countries we looked at, we flagged 9 recommendations for improvement. So one of them is the prioritization of deep renovation and scalability in the design and implementation of the schemes. The second one, which was touched upon already, is this idea of moving forward with renovation roadmaps or renovation passports, making sure that projects under the NRRP come with those passports so that can start creating the necessary conditions for their wider rollout. In terms of finance, as I flagged, crowding in private finance would be a necessity, and there is a need to look further into how that can happen. So there are creative ideas around building in more private finance, which can be leveraged there. In terms of multiple benefits and integration, as I said, the heat decarbonization and energy efficiency appear to not be very well integrated still. So there is potential there for the application of energy efficiency first principle consistently and making sure that programs are delivering on both objectives. And then on the point around embedding renovation alongside wider political national priorities, the idea there is that there is also room, although most countries have moved on that and do see renovation, recognize that energy renovation of the building stock delivers wider benefit. There is still room to improve that, especially around energy poverty, and that might be even stronger in the context of the current energy prices. In terms of supply chain and project support, as I said, strengthening technical assistance at regional and local level would be one way to improve the funds. And then further supporting for one-stop shops and information centers, making sure that best practices are exchanged between countries and also within countries and regions, and upskilling the workforce through reliable accreditation systems. And finally, on the implementation, we see potential for better monitoring and aggregation of data to make sure impacts of the renovation projects are measured and tracked. So I won't go into too much detail because Adrian was very clear on that. There is a potentially kind of spiral of positivity which can emerge between investment on the ground through the recovery plans, which then create the enabling conditions for a strong regulatory package. So there is a need for ambitious regulation alongside the recovery plans, we think. That can lead to rapid increase in the rate and depth of renovation and future-proofing buildings. There is also, we see potential for prioritizing smart and efficient heating and cooling decarbonization and harnessing accelerated transformation. So there, with some of the key proposals being put forward around the energy performance of building directives and energy efficiency directive, there is significant room for leveraging this recovery funding in that context to make sure that the right environment exists, so that stronger regulation becomes possible. Now moving into the overview of the Slovenia plan. Full details are in the study, so I won't go in depth here. What we found is that Slovenia is, as I've mentioned, is around 86 million allocated mostly to the public sector. So that is modest funding compared to others, but it might be because our countries have also prioritized the residential sector. One of the key kind of takeaways is that leveraging the learnings and from these public sector programs can be key to make sure that the rest of the building sector gets renovated at pace. So there is potential there for all the learnings and creativity that goes into the current programs to be leveraged for the residential sector later on. As we said, energy renovation by subsector is 100% in the public domain. Some of the challenges we identified with a lot of help from Vladimir on the ground is that the renovation rates in Slovenia are low. I mean, they're low, comparable to other countries, but in the residential building stock, only 1.3% are medium depth renovation, and less than 0.1% is deep renovation per year. In the non-residential sector, similarly, 1.5% medium depth and 0.3% deep renovations. So significant room for improvement there. The age and the weak protection of the current building stock was highlighted as one of the key challenges in front of the reduction of energy demand. And then the requirements to move forward both on deep renovation and switching away from fossil fuel to renewables. And finally, the shortage of stable financial sources for the public sector is another barrier or challenge, I should say. The strong points, there are strong points within the plan. So the Slovenian plan includes technical assistance with a specific government office being created for supporting regional and authorities and public sector in general, which we think is positive, likely to create, increase implementation speed. Also, the plan is one of the plans which demonstrated better understanding of financial needs. So it's clear how much funding is being allocated and for what, or at least articulated very clearly. And then the implementation framework also seemed fairly clear and straightforward. With, as you can see on the chart below, there are clear milestones for delivery throughout the programs, which is something we don't always observe. And finally, on the recommendations for Slovenia in particular is around leveraging private funds to address the risk of shortage of qualified construction workers, expanding the renovation goals and ambitions from the public sector to the residential building sector, and consider how you focus on energy poverty, and then the use of our funding to strengthen technical assistance, which has been highlighted as a key barrier to the increasing depth and rate of renovation. So I think I would stop here, stop sharing, and back to Vladimir, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Milislava. Yes, now it's time for questions. I think the figures somehow are not so let's say, nice in some way for Slovenia as for other countries. The objective of today's workshop was to get more information from the responsible ministry for implementation, that is Ministry of Infrastructure, but that's not the case. So we can, I'm inviting you to make questions to Milislava, maybe on some details of the study. And for the rest of the speakers this morning, if you have any idea or any suggestion how to improve the suggested or mentioned collaboration in many fields, go ahead. Open the mic and just make the question.
Marco was first.
Marco, yes,
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you see me?
No.
Okay, but you can hear me.
Just a second. Mute. Ask to start video, and now you can start the video.
I have some technical problem, but can you hear me at least?
Yes. We can hear you.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Marko Umberger, and I'm energy consultant for the city of Ljubljana, and I'm also president of the Slovenian Solar Energy Society. I would like to congratulate first Vlado and Andro for this excellent meeting, very interesting. We had also very interesting speeches from Adrian and young lady. So what I would like to say is the following. Myself, I am very deep supporter of deep renovation of buildings and of the campaign of the Renovate Europe. I think this is the right target, and I think that what Adrian did was excellent and the idea was very good. But unfortunately, I'm not satisfied with the results of this Renovate Europe campaign after 10 years. My impression is that deep renovation is not taken seriously in European Union. If we look at all these plans, what also Deleuze presented in this, and also in this Renovate to Recover, that the mostly countries have the ambition of reducing energy consumption of 30%, which is very, very little. We can see that we have very, very few deeply renovated buildings in Europe. I was very happy to see this Bordeaux example in France, in Bratislava in Croatia. But my impression is that there are very, very few examples. And I think that also these 46 champions, which you mentioned, that support our movement, do not help very much. And I think we are simply not doing deep renovations. So I would like to ask Adrian, what are the activities to promote that deep renovation more and to escalate these buildings? For example, in Slovenia, we have not even one multi-family building renovated on the deep renovation standard. So the situation is not good, but I can also see that also in other countries, my impression is that the situation is not good. So I think that the basic idea which we have, and our idea that we need, what are the possibilities of lowering this energy consumption, I think this idea is excellent. We all agree with this. My impression is, as I said, the results are not good. Perhaps Adrian could give us an example. And I'm sorry, I don't want to be critical, but I would like that we have, I would really like that we have the situation to have much more deep renovated buildings in Europe. So perhaps, Mr. Joyce, if you can give us an answer, what do you think? How can we escalate this number of deep renovated buildings? Just for an example, I would like also to say, if I compare this movement of deep renovation with the movement of the passive house buildings, and I think I had a few times Mr. Feist as a guest, they did excellent recovery, excellent achievement all around the world. Everybody's talking about passive houses, but passive houses are exactly the same standards as we are doing with deep renovation. And I also put myself a question why they are so successful and we are not. And as I say again, I don't want to apologize if I didn't follow anything, and I would be happy to hear the answer of Mr. Joyce. Thank you.
Marco, thank you for the observation, and I have to agree with you that your observation is accurate, and it is indeed a frustration for the Renovate Europe campaign that 10 years on, the rate of deep energy renovation remains stubbornly low across the European Union. You asked the question, what can we do about it? And I think, well, the answer we're putting forward is there's need for top-down action and bottom-up action. So it's a question of mobilizing all stakeholders and to mobilize them all in a cooperative and coherent way moving forward. Now, what do I mean? For the top-down, we are calling for the introduction of minimum energy performance standards that would oblige building owners on a segment-by-segment of the building stock basis to achieve significant savings at trigger points in the life of the building. And those minimum energy performance standards should be devised in harmony with the milestones set in the long-term renovation strategies, so they act as an enabling framework for achieving a highly energy efficient and decarbonized building stock across all of the EU by 2050. So that's one example of a top-down measure that we believe is badly needed. An example of a bottom-up measure is a bit what we're doing today, bringing stakeholders together to expose together the problems and then to address those problems through programs or actions that we can undertake as stakeholders. And one of those areas is education and training. And Horia pointed out that this is part of the landscape that he's working within, market readiness. And we don't, I mean, there's a feeling among a lot of people who advocate for greater action in the building sector on renovation, that it is only through policymakers and policy instruments that this can be achieved. And that's not true. We as actors on the ground must be doing the work. And in order to make that action on the ground more likely, I hope we can find ways to increase what I call the desire of building owners to ask for their buildings to be renovated. And that's maybe where the Renovate Europe campaign can act moving forward, by further raising the awareness of the benefits to the individual, not just to society, of deep energy renovating their building, and helping and pointing out where the supporting enabling framework and tools are available, like one-stop shops, like innovative financing, long-term, low-risk financing, so that the desire to ask for the renovation is increased. So these are areas where we're going to work with our national partners moving forward, and we're very open to suggestions around how to break this. There's one other thing, Marco, I should refer to that we fought strongly against, and that is the criteria in the EU taxonomy for financing, where the 30% threshold of savings mean, that if you invest and achieve 30% savings, it's considered green. We were saying, no, it should be 60%, because 30% is locking in potential over the decades ahead. So these are some of my thoughts around the question. And Marco, never be afraid to be a critical voice. It helps us to fine-tune our actions and to move forward more meaningfully. So I'm really pleased to have had your comments. And I don't know if others would like to come in behind me and maybe share ideas. But thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Some other question? Let's check the chat. No question in chat. Please just open the microphone and make a question. I would make a question then by myself, actually, to present what we will do, like Renovate Europe together, to overview the implementation of the national recovery plans. I think this is important, and it's in parallel invitation for our national partners to get part in that work. So if you can say a few words on that.
I can quickly jump in by saying that the studies we produced, we've extracted all the deadlines, milestones, and everything that's in the recovery plans, which should allow for the tracking and transparency. And I think Adrian has some big plans around work with national partners on that going forward.
Yeah, Vladislava, not only with national partners, but we're also trying to frame, Vladimir, an ongoing relationship with E3G, so that they would actually produce summaries or briefing notes, maybe on a twice-a-year basis during the life of the National Recovery and Resilience Plans, and would animate the inputs from the national partners as they did so skillfully in preparing the study. So we are literally working on this at the present moment, Vladimir. And when it comes to the steering group meeting in December, we hope that those plans mature enough for them to be adopted and approved by the steering group, so that in 22 we already start with this very close monitoring of what's happening across the 18 countries that we have taken a deep dive into. So I hope, and of course, we will rely heavily on national partners, and are very grateful for the very good support we've had to date. Several of you are on the call, actually, because Horia helped a great deal for Romania. And Vladimir, you and your colleagues, and Andro worked in Slovenia. So yeah, we want to keep this alive moving forward, and we will structure that in a way that we hope will be palatable for the national partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Some more questions about our national plan. We will make, we already did, but we will do it again, provide the links to the report, to the analysis. So you can download it for free, or you can just jump to the Renovate Europe website, and all those documents are there. So you can go and see what the other countries are planning and planning to do compared to our situation. We will try to get more information on our ambitions in terms of implementation in one of the next sessions or workshops, because today we could not manage to get anybody from Ministry of Infrastructure. Hopefully till next time there will be more information on that. And in regard the bottom-up activities, I think Horia presented so many things which can be replicated, and I'm asking him exactly how this can be done. You know, also with some kind of support of Renovate Europe. You know, sharing best practices of bottom-up activities, improving the market readiness. This is not Romanian issue. This is also issue in many European countries. So why not to accelerate this mutual learning, so-called? Horia, can you comment on that?
Yes, I didn't want to add something to Adrian's response. That was really straightforward and clear. But indeed, we are involved in this bottom-up approaches because it depends to us and it's a matter of responsibility. And the main are awareness and training, upskilling. And this is what we're doing, for example, in NZEB Roadshow, but also we have some activities in NZEB REDAY by personal implication. You're going to individuals, you're going to representative of companies, you're going to representative of associations, and you discuss with them. On the other hand, the Building Knowledge Hub as a concept, it's a very useful one. You're doing trainings for the 3 target groups, which are the construction companies people, are the specialists, the architect, the designers, and the decision makers, which are not maybe technical competent, but they have the pencil in their hand and they sign financing for deep renovation and for construction of new buildings. And if you make them understand what are the benefits and why to do this and why not to do that, they will speak with the individual, they will speak with the building owner, and they will explain. And this is also awareness, and this is also communication by upskilling and by having a combined technical and practical training and qualification, maybe, and give them the weapons to convince the final beneficiary. And in all this, if we add the public communication, the social media, and taking into account that there are nowadays, maybe not many, but there are persons, people, individual building owners that are seeking on the internet, because you have a huge ocean, I would say, of information, and they seek and they prepare themselves, and in some cases they know better than the architect and than the designer what they want to do with their windows and with their systems and then building envelope, for example. And we should target those guys also. Maybe we could say that they are the early adopters if we are speaking about the NZEB or deep energy renovation, but yeah, we should target also them, and we should increase the communication on that. We do not have in Romania, unfortunately, a good communication on that. We have messages on the TV on how to wash your hands, how to whatever, do something for your health and not eat sugar or salt or whatever, but we do not have targeted short messages on what to do with your buildings, and we need that.
Yes, thank you. This is very a good idea for communication activities. We are a little bit behind the schedule. As there are no further questions, I would suggest to have a short break to grab a cup of coffee. And before going that, I would like to ask Mariana, who is already with us, if she's ready to present her part in English, because I guess some of you will stay with us. And instead of presenting in Slovenian, maybe English would help to reach more attendees of this workshop. Mariana, can you?
Hello to everybody. Okay, I spent an hour yesterday translating the presentation to Slovenian, but I will, during the break, look up for a previous English version.
I think the Slovenian attendees will
give me a few minutes during
the break. Will agree with that. I hope that's not a problem.
Okay.
So let's have a let's say 10 minutes break to have a cup of coffee and start 11:30.